Hello, everyone. Today, on our YouTube channel dedicated to human brain, we have absolutely amazing scientist and an entrepreneur, and we're absolutely honored and proud to have him at our channel. And we're going to discuss. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words and for the invitation. It's a pleasure.
Yuri Deigin dedicated his entrepreneurial venture to very sophisticated and extremely actual important subject matter dedicated to human brain, particularly to the disease of a human brain. And the way we consider this disease is very we are how currently humankind is actually doing diagnosis and tracking this particular disease is very complicated also. So let's ask Yuri some questions about the work he does and his company called YouthBio Therapeutics. So, Yuri, first of all, the very basic questions that every single person probably asks you: why did you choose such sophisticated journey? There are so many paths. Why did you choose this particular one?
Oh, well, sometimes I think the path chose me. It's just a series of unfortunate events that led me to. Well, I went to the drug development, that I got interested in longevity, and I've always been interested in brain diseases. And Alzheimer's has been also a personal passion and interest, and probably a bit of a, I guess, scare for me personally, because it runs in my family. And between longevity and Alzheimer's, I just somehow gravitated toward trying to rejuvenate the brain, or at least first and foremost, prevent the brain from aging, or at least slow down the aging process, ideally reverse the aging process. And Alzheimer's was just a natural indication in which to try the approach that we're currently translating, which is partial reprogramming, to try if this approach can be applied to the brain and can actually work at preventing neurodegeneration, or maybe even reversing neurodegeneration, in particular within Alzheimer's, because we need some sort of disease to which we can apply our therapy and demonstrate some sort of therapeutic benefit before we can actually sell it to patients. And the Alzheimer's indication seemed like a natural fit for our therapy. And this is, I guess, how I ended up doing what I'm doing at YouthBio.
So basically, that's the reason why this particular disease. And you actually have prerequisites to have this particular disease. Someone from your family. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Basically, my grandmother, she had it, and I did a genetic test, and I have what's called the ApoE4 variant, or epsilon 4 variant of the ApoE4 gene. Actually, I have 2 copies, so I'm at a much higher risk of Alzheimer's, like 15 to 20 times higher risk versus people who don't have a copy of the ApoE4 gene. So, yeah, I found that out pretty early on, and initially I was definitely scared. And I mean, I'm still worried. I don't know if I'm scared, but definitely it's not a pleasant thought that I have such a high risk of Alzheimer's versus the general population. And definitely that's part of the motivation that's driving me in trying to come up with therapies that could actually produce some meaningful therapeutic benefits to people in maybe preventing Alzheimer's, but ideally, of course, reversing Alzheimer's.
Completely curing the disease. So the question is, can we actually reverse aging at the cellular level?
At the cellular level? Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but if that's the question, at the cellular level, we can definitely reverse aging. That's what's been demonstrated by partial reprogramming, the approach that we're trying to translate. If you take Yamanaka factors to an old cell and reprogram that old cell all the way to the ground state of development, the embryonic stem cell, the cell is also rejuvenated physiologically, not just epigenetically, but also physiologically. All the hallmarks of aging, cellular hallmarks of aging, are reverted to the young state. So if you then reprogram that cell back into the starting cell type, like a fibroblast, that fibroblast is a young fibroblast. So you take an old fibroblast from a centenarian, reprogram it to embryonic pluripotent stem cell, then you reprogram that cell back into a fibroblast, and that fibroblast is young. So at a cellular level, you can definitely rejuvenate cells. This has been demonstrated.
I've heard about Yamanaki multiple times, of course, but there are multiple controversies related to it, as I know that a lot of experiments that didn't go as expected, and they actually can cause cancer on a certain level. So
that's actually an incorrect stereotype.
It's incorrect. How safe? Yeah. How safe?
Partial reprogramming is very safe. So partial means you only express Yamanaka factors for a short duration of the time, and that has not resulted in teratomas, in those cancerous tumors. What has resulted in teratomas was the original experiment in which they overexpressed these factors for like 2 weeks at a time, and that created teratomas, that created these tumors, which are actually rather safe. They're safer than, say, some metastatic cancers that people have, because they're encapsulated and they don't metastasize, at least Yamanaka factor-induced teratomas, they don't metastasize. And so those teratomas were not the reason why the mice died in the original experiment in 2013. But for some reason, I think people just, it was an easy stereotype, or like easily relatable fear that people could associate with reprogramming, and they're like, teratoma is reprogramming cancer, and that's somehow stuck. But partial reprogramming, when you express the factors for only a few days at a time, has not resulted in teratomas in almost a decade of the lifetime of this field. The field was started in 2016 by the paper by Alejandro Ocampo, and since then there's been dozen plus papers and experiments that tried partial reprogramming in vivo in various animals, and none of them, to my knowledge, have resulted in teratomas. In some experiments, then further research by Ocampo, they actually tried to see what would happen if we keep expressing those factors for too long. And mice do die, but they don't die from teratomas. They die from liver failure. Like basically, it's those mice, they have a copy of the Yamanaka genes in all of their cells in their body. And if you keep inducing Yamanaka factors consecutively for like a few days at a time, and then see what happens after like day 4 or day 5, mice start dying. And by like day 8, I think all of them, 100% of the mice in the experiment die. But the reason they die is because of liver failure or intestinal failure. And so this led the Ocampo lab to then try a different mouse model in which liver and small intestine were the only cell types in which the Yamanaka factors were not expressed, and all of the other cell types, all of the like almost 200 other cell types in the body, they still expressed Yamanaka factors. And then they tried the experiment again, and that time mice survived for like 10 days consecutive expression of Yamanaka factors. So 100% of the mice survived 10 days of inducing Yamanaka factors when you exclude the liver and the small intestine. So that alone tells us that it's not teratomas that kills the mice, it's just organs, critical organs losing their function because reprogramming forces them into a certain epigenetic state or transcriptomic state where they're not just doing the work they're supposed to be doing. Like liver is not doing the work that it's supposed to be doing, and liver is a critical organ, and that leads to the death of animals. And this is actually why we at YouthBio are doing partial reprogramming in a cell type specific manner or tissue specific manner, where we're just targeting a particular tissue that we want to rejuvenate, and we stay away from the tissues that we think can give problems. And so we take a bottom up approach rather than like a top down, let's reprogram everything except this, and that. We take the bottom up, let's just reprogram this, and that, and stay away from everything else, and see if this alone is enough to give a brain rejuvenation, give some other organ rejuvenation, and then we can combine those therapies and hope for systemic level rejuvenation that will lower biological age, reduce the risk of age-related diseases, and so forth. So this is the approach that we're taking precisely because Yamanaka factors could be dangerous, but they're not dangerous in a way that you think, people have a stereotype that cancer is what the danger is. The danger is that reprogramming can actually cause organs to lose function.
I got you. Thank you so much for explanation. So The next question is, what actually the differences between reprogramming for longevity and reprogramming for disease treatment?
There is no difference. Basically, disease is a subset of longevity. Trying to have a benefit in a particular disease is just a small subset of the grand vision in which we partially reprogram all tissues that we can safely do so in, with the goal of reducing their biological age and then hopefully systemically reducing the organismal biological age, have the whole organism be at a lower biological age, be essentially biologically younger, and that reduces the risk of getting all age-related diseases, or at least the age-related diseases associated with organs that we target. And so, but of course, from a regulatory standpoint, you can't, at this point at least, you can't have a therapy get approval for longevity in like a novel therapy in which you haven't demonstrated a therapeutic benefit in a particular disease first. So we have to first have a disease in which you say, okay, our therapy has a therapeutic benefit in either preventing or reversing disease X, and then you get that on the market, and then you can expand your label for additional diseases, and then you can have like a whole, like a basket of diseases in which you show that your therapy reduces the risk of getting all of those age-related diseases, and ultimately that could be a fully approved longevity therapy that the FDA or some other regulator is going to be okay with once you demonstrated that your therapy is, good, therapeutically beneficial for some sort of disease or ultimately a number of diseases.
So you currently are focusing on the brain. What next organ would be?
We have several actually in the pipeline, like tissues that we would like to target, both like the vasculature, the cardiovascular system is definitely high on the priority list, and also this muscle is definitely, like sarcopenia is an indication that we think is important. Yeah, to prevent muscle loss or maybe reverse muscle loss. And some other organs that we have an interest in, and other companies have already been trying, like the hematopoietic system or like T cells. They've been reprogramming T cells to improve their function, and basically the immune system is kind of you could say, well, I guess it's a complex organ system, but it definitely is an important area for overall systemic health. And you can target T cells, you can target hematopoietic stem cells with partial reprogramming with the goal of rejuvenating them. And also kidneys, definitely a particularly important area for me. And in some reported existing results, they've shown that when you transplant kidneys, you can actually take that kidney about to be transplanted, use partial reprogramming, and that improves its function, basically rejuvenates the kidney that you're about to put in some new host. So,
what are the main obstacles? Do you have any obstacles in terms of scaling of the approach, scaling of the treatment for the patient?
Well, for gene therapies, the biggest challenge is delivery, and delivering the therapy, first of all, in a just specific tissue or specific organ, specific area of the organ. Like for us, it's within the brain, like the hippocampus is the target for Alzheimer's and some other like neurodegenerative diseases, and avoiding side effects and off-target effects like your therapy ending up in the liver and messing up the liver, where you're trying to target only the brain, or you're trying to target only a specific tissue, and you really don't want the therapy to end up in the liver. But with gene therapies right now, as they stand, this is a challenge, first of all, like precise delivery and avoiding expression in the tissues that you don't want. And our work from day one at YouthBio has been geared towards making sure we are tissue specific, we avoid off-target effects, we only express in the cell types that we target, like neurons, for example, and we have no expression in other cell types that we don't want expression in. And also efficiency in terms of like the percentage of cells in a given organ that you want to end up having your therapy, your therapeutic vector in. With the current gene therapy delivery mechanisms, it's sort of low, but actually this could be a blessing in disguise, because you actually probably don't want to target 100% of the cells in the organ, as we've seen with transgenic mouse models, because if you reprogram all of the cells in your liver, by day 3 or day 4, your liver fails and the animal dies. But if you actually use a gene expression vector, which only targets like half of the cells or even 20% of the cells, those 20% of the cells, when you try to rejuvenate them, they could potentially, once if you're successful and they're rejuvenated, they could have like paracrine effects on the neighboring cells that didn't get the vector. So from a positive standpoint, 20% or I don't know, 50% hypothetically, rejuvenation of the cells in a given organ could be enough. But from a risk standpoint, if only 20% of your cells fail, or only half of your liver cells fail, you still have 50% of the cells that you didn't touch with your vector that could still potentially support the function of that organ. So from that standpoint, actually maybe having an efficiency of gene therapies, current gene therapies, that's way below 100% is actually a good thing. So that might not be necessarily a problem, but could actually be, like I said, a blessing in disguise for us.
Thank you so much for the explanation. So on which stage your company and the treatment is?
We are actually, like, overall we're still considered early stage biotech company, but we're actually farther than probably most partial reprogramming companies in the space, because we already reached the stage where we're about to have a conversation with the FDA, which is called an Interact meeting, where we discuss the plans that we have for getting our therapy into humans, into the clinical trials, and what safety studies we have to do to demonstrate safety to the FDA, for then the FDA to be comfortable and allow us to start the clinical trial. So we are in later stages of preclinical development. So we've already done the proof of concept studies in Alzheimer's mouse models, in which we've demonstrated the therapeutic benefit in that mouse model. So we have enough efficacy signal to then say, okay, the next step is to demonstrate safety in a rigorous way that the FDA or other regulators demand. And once we demonstrate safety, then take it to humans and try to see if we can have, first and foremost, you demonstrate safety in humans, but also we can have first signals of efficacy in humans as well, to see if we can slow down the pace of the decline, or maybe even see reversal of cognitive decline in patients like with the recently diagnosed Alzheimer's. This is our ultimate goal for a first in human trial. Have patients.
You mentioned that you're working with, you're targeting different regulators, not just FDA. Are you going global? Are you targeting multiple markets?
Well, for the first in human trial, we're thinking between. Of course, U.S. is the primary market, and this kind of the gold standard, the regulatory gold standard for what data you need to generate to get approval, or even just approval to start a clinical trial. But also, we're actually thinking of doing the first in human trial in Australia, just because it's got some lower bureaucratic hurdles, and also it's faster in terms of initiating the phase 1 trial. And also they have financial incentives in Australia, where they have an R&D tax credit, which you can get like a 43% tax credit for your R&D expenses, which is pretty compelling for
sounds amazing.
But of course, ultimately, the goal is to have a therapy available, globally, and it on the market in as wide a geography as possible. But the data we generate in Australia is actually accepted by the FDA. So if our phase 1 is successful there, it's phase 1/2A, basically the very initial, very early preliminary signs of efficacy. Then the subsequent phase 2B trial we can do in the US and or Europe or anywhere else we choose to do.
Understood. Very interesting. We're looking forward to it, because it's extremely important subject matter, very popular, unfortunately, disease, and the numbers growing for multiple reasons.
Yeah,
so yes, that's absolutely it's absolutely fascinating and extremely important. So I have a few questions left. One of them, how your company different from other longevity companies like Altos Labs, Calico.
Yeah, well, there are
There's
many longevity companies, but there's not that many partial reprogramming companies. In our subset, there's probably, I don't know, less than 10, I would say. But yeah, Altus Labs is probably the most well-known company that does partial reprogramming. There's also YouthBio. David Sinclair has been pretty early on in this space. TurnBio is one of the pioneers. New Limit's been making a splash in the internets lately with a lot of like social media activity. Well, how are we different? And ShiftBio, of course. Well, ShiftBio and New Limit, they are concentrating on looking for novel factors. They don't want to translate Yamanaka factors, whereas ourselves, YouthBio, TurnBio, and Altus Labs, as far as I know, they're working on translating actual Yamanaka factors. So for like first generation therapies, we're trying to take what has been demonstrated to work in animals using partial reprogramming with the Yamanaka factors and have that at least tried in humans, because looking for novel factors is important, and we're doing that ourselves at YouthBio. But I don't think we should be waiting to translate what already we know works, the Yamanaka factors, while trying to find this novel stuff, because finding novel stuff means once we find it, it's another decade before that actually sees a patient. Whereas Yamanaka factors, like it's almost been a decade since the Yamanaka factors have demonstrated to work, partial reprogramming, and seeing a first patient between ourselves and YouthBio hopes to have a human clinical trial, like now it's January or so next year. It's been a decade, and patients are waiting, and they don't have all that much time to wait. Like you ask a patient today, would they rather try Yamanaka-based partial reprogramming therapy or something better or safer in 10 years? I'm sure they're going to say, let's try what you have right now, and I'll take my chances, because in 10 years, chances are I'm just going to be dead. So I don't have that much time to wait for you guys to find the perfect solution to like partial reprogramming. I mean, Yamanaka factors, they're not perfect. They definitely have this risk of pluripotency, but except, like I mentioned, it's not cancer that's the risk. The risk is that the cell is shifted towards a epigenetic state and transcriptomic state that's just not supporting its original function. And if you find factors that are decoupled from that risk, they produce rejuvenation, but they don't produce this de-differentiation, great. And as I said, we're also looking for those factors ourselves, but we don't think this should be, this should be the limiting factor preventing us from trying to translate Yamanaka factors. I think they should be done in parallel. And so this is one aspect of difference between ourselves and some, like I mentioned, companies like New Limit and Shift, and between other companies like, I forgot to mention RetroBio, of course. It's, I think the differences are who's targeting which organs. Like YouthBio is targeting the eye, TurnBio is targeting the skin, to my knowledge, and some like ex vivo hematopoietic stem cell rejuvenation and T cell rejuvenation. We're targeting the brain. We're pretty like exclusive. Like the brain is our primary organ at this point, and Alzheimer's is our target indication. To my knowledge, we're the only company within the partial reprogramming space targeting Alzheimer's as a clinical indication. So this is what sets us apart. And of course, in terms of traction, like I said, we're between ourselves and YouthBio and maybe TurnBio, we're the only companies that are close to the clinic, or at least getting to like the pre-ND stage and IND enabling studies to get to the human clinical trials. So with partial reprogramming, I mean, other companies with other indications, other approaches, I mean, could be also, close to the clinic. But if we're talking partial reprogramming, longevity itself, like there's definitely a lot of other companies who are clinical, like BioAge, and some in the past, like Unity and or Restore Bio. They've had clinical trials with their longevity therapies. But yeah,
it's interesting.
we're
all of them. You're following it's very impressive. The way how you know all your competitors.
It's my space has been my life for 15 years. I know every nook and cranny in the space, and definitely
that's impressive.
Not a lot of successes, a lot of failed human clinical trials, but hopefully there'll be a success in our field, and that will propel the field even further.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's the
I
hope.
I
That's the
believe
hope.
I believe in you guys' success 100%. So it's just
Thank you. So do I. I mean, that's why.
matter of time.
That's why.
A few questions, absolutely crazy questions suggested by ChatGPT. Let's do them. Well, they are fun, and I believe it will bring some, I don't know, spice into the conversation. Okay, the first question is, what's one belief you held for most of your life that you now see as complete illusion? And how did it shape or sabotage you?
Wow, this is this is definitely a different type of question that we were discussing. So this is like
It helps
Freudian
to.
psychoanalysis now. Okay.
It's not well. It's more about maybe personal development, because it's any like any when you're starting your business, you like really going through so much transformation in terms of personal development, a lot of changes in the way you're approaching things. And I'm just wondering, do you have any belief you held related to anything related to
Sure.
science, or like how things done, maybe in business environments, anything?
Sure. Yeah. Actually, I have a perfect answer now. It's just completely like crystallized when you ask the question. The belief that I had growing up is that the world is run by smart people, like knowledgeable, wise people, and this is like a fractal belief that you think people at the top of governments are really smart people who know what they're doing, and people at the top of companies are smart people who know what they're doing. But now I know this is completely untrue. The people at the top are as dumb and as unwise and as emotionally driven as anybody else, just on the street. So this is like knowing that basically people at the top level of huge companies are no smarter or wiser than me, and we at our level of our very small team can do things that are way smarter, way greater, way more impressive than people with billions of dollars and huge teams. So
that's amazing. It brings so much hope and positivity in the things you do. That's
well,
amazing.
on the other hand, knowing that the fate of the world is in the hands of people who are not all that smart, wise, or deep thinkers, it's troubling because
Yes, we live in
everything
we live in a dangerous.
go in a huge
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Let's not go.
Let's keep it
in the
positive.
sense, yes, let's.
We'll hope that eventually cooler heads will prevail and some wise people somewhere will guide the hotter heads to more reasonable choices.
Exactly. Yes. Well, things go sometimes wrong way because of it, but that's the reason we have to rely more on ourselves and do whatever possible and be more responsible to things we do. Because if we will not do, nobody will do. It brings a lot more responsibility to the things to our own souls. Another crazy question, interesting question though. If your mind was a country, who or what would be the ruling government, and would there be a revolution coming?
Well, I hope not, because a revolution in your mind can put you in a mental hospital, right? I mean, if my mind were a country and what kind of government, I mean, minds are, I think it's a bad analogy, because governments have to, cater to millions of people, different people, and make sure, everything's like fair and equal and nothing's. Whereas, your own mind, you only have one person you're in charge of, and you have to do what's best for that person. And so from that model, I think, the mind, you just have I guess, a very authoritarian government where, if you let yourself kind of slack too much and be too easy on yourself, you're just gonna not, accomplish anything, not be successful, and ultimately this is actually going to be bad for you, because you will eventually in this world, unfortunately, and just end up in some very unfortunate economic circumstances and probably social circumstances. So you have to keep yourself in control, and
so you're more on the side of more control, right?
For sure. Yeah, I think for discipline, definitely. I mean, Stoicism, I definitely aspire to the ideals of Marcus Aurelius and all of the kind of the great Stoics, and of course the way you try to be hard on yourself, but not hard on your loved ones, and easy on basically your children and the people you love. You try to be very,
and that's the trick. That's the tricky question, because our inner world is just approximation of our outside world. So you better be very more softer to yourself. That will help you to be softer with your loved ones.
I guess, this is a very, very deep and complex topic to
in terms of deep and complex, it's actually not. And I've recently I've been doing a lot of conversation, a lot of application for like different programs and accelerators, for investments, and they ask nowadays they ask very interesting questions related to the way how your mind organized, because that's important. That's very interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
that's interesting. Very interesting to hear. Okay, the last one, just for fun. If you don't want, I mean, you don't have to respond. What truth about yourself do you wish the world never finds out, and why do you still protect it? By the way, this question was suggested by ChatGPT for the interview with scientists.
Maybe ChatGPT is trying to like sabotage humans and like trying to get humans to reveal all their like darkest secrets, so that it can then use it against them when the time comes. So
true. So you cannot underestimate. Yes.
Yeah. And of course, if I'm smart and logical, I would. Like, why would I reveal something I wouldn't want the world to know, right? So, maybe ChatGPT is just not all that smart to begin with, if he thinks that we humans are so silly as to answer those questions. No, ChatGPT, I won't incriminate myself. I plead the fifth, so
usually
my darkest secrets will die with me.
We'll keep being secrets. Usually it's related to like childish little fears some people have, and sometimes it's just it's just funny things. So you don't have to respond. It's just interesting. It was interesting. How would you react to this?
It's a funny question. Of course, I don't know it.
That was a try to make the conversation spicier. Suggestions from ChatGPT. Anyhow, it was extremely interesting conversation. I liked it so much. Thank you so much for explaining the things you do and your company. So I wish you huge success, and it's a pleasure was talking. Thank you so much. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise, it was a pleasure, and hopefully to chat again soon.